Hello and welcome. This is Casey and I'm here to do another iris reading. And this is a true brown iris. So for those of you who are wondering what a true brown iris looks like, this is what it looks like. There aren't any signs of blue or green or anything like that in the iris. It is 100% brown. And the main way that you can discern a true brown iris from an iris that has been over the years and throughout the genetic history accumulating lymphatic congestion. And so lymphatic congestion appears in the white to the yellow to the light brown to the darker brown to the very brown. So some people's eyes can appear to be brown, but that is just simply due to lymphatic congestion. Anyway, the best way for me is to, if you're not able to see much color underneath the brown, you can look at the texture of the iris. So the true brown iris has a velvet texture. And I went over iris textures in the iris constitution video if you want to check that out. But a velvet structure does indicate quite strong genetics. So they have a really strong constitution. One of the drawbacks to a very strong constitution is that a lot of things can go unseen, unfelt. They don't necessarily appear in the acute phases. So a lot of times they get into the subacute, chronic, or even degenerative phases before you start to notice anything's going on in your body. So we have here a true brown iris, excellent genetics, excellent constitution. We do have a lot of lacuna, so you can see right away that there are some openings within the iris fibers in a few areas in the eye, and I would say primarily there's really a lot going on in the stomach and bowel area. So you're going to see a lot of radii solaris in here. You see all of these little dark streaks coming out from the pupil, and that is indicating that there is a good deal of toxicity coming from the stomach and bowels, and just the entire digestive system does look to be a little bit compromised. Okay, and so we're going to look at where these radii solaris are, what areas they are affecting. So for instance, this line right here, it's a good, pretty well-defined radii solaris in the chronic, even into the degenerative stages, and it does originate in the stomach and bowels, and it leads us up to some challenges in the brain zones known as sensory motor and vitality. Okay, so the vitality center is also known as the crown chakra, and it is just straight up 12 o'clock in the iris. This line, this radii solaris, is actually it's just right on the edge of the vitality center and also sensory motor. So with the vitality center, that's going to indicate how much energy and zest for life, how much energy you have to complete your tasks. It's also called animation life. It represents the limbic portions of the cerebrum, and it includes the thalamus and the hypothalamus, including the pituitary gland. So in this state of subacute to chronic to degenerative, it could be indicating that this person is experiencing a lack of vitality for what she needs to be accomplishing in life. Also, it could mean that there's just not a lot of inspiration inherently found in her work. So that's often what it can indicate. All right, and then the one right, so it's vitality would be right in here, and then right in here, just snuggled up right against it, is the sensory motor or sensory locomotion. So that center coordinates how our senses guide us to stand and move in the world. It integrates mental and physical functions and controls movement. Also influences the sensations that guide us to know where we are: heat, cold, pain, touch, pressure, and movement. It does work closely with the five senses area, and I believe I did see the five senses area come up either in this, this is the left iris, so it's either in this iris or the right iris, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So let's see actually if it is, yeah, so it's right here. So here is the five senses area. So that does correlate to the sensory locomotion. So I have a more complete description on the brain zones on my website, and as well as an abundance really of iridology resources. So you're welcome to check that out. And let's move on from there. So back to taking a look at the digestive system and all of the radii solaris and stress going on in the digestive system, there also does appear to be a bit of a malabsorption ring. You can see that on the edge of the pupil. Actually, I'm going to erase that so you can see this sort of dark, uneven edge right on the edge of the pupil. It's a little bit of a different color than the pupil itself, and that does indicate hyperacidity within the stomach lining and the inability to completely absorb nutrients from the food that you are taking in, as well on an emotional level, how you are able to absorb nutrients or love or positive emotion from your environment, if you want to look at it from the emotional, spiritual perspective. But overall, when we see this absorption or malabsorption ring, we are looking at some challenges within the stomach. Okay, and the stomach itself does look to have some hyperacidity in it, and as mentioned, there are just a number of radii solaris. So one of the things that this person's going to be focusing on right away is cleaning the stomach and bowels. And if you're following Dr. Morse protocol, I would highly recommend you use the GI broom, first and foremost the GI broom, and if you wanted to add a stomach and bowel capsule, you could do that as well. Okay, so let's look at some areas that these radii solaris, we just mentioned the brain zones that they are affecting, and then let's look at the rest of the iris and see what else we see. Okay, so this little area right in here, let me get a different color. So this little spot right in here is representing the pituitary gland. So, and it's a pretty significant, I mean, it's not super, super significant, but it is right on the pituitary gland and it is pretty dark. So I would say that because the pituitary gland is such an important, everything of course is very interconnected, but the pituitary gland itself does secrete many, many hormones for the rest of the endocrine system and the glands. So it's important in the sense that if you have a pituitary that's down, you very well could also have other glands such as thyroid, adrenals, parathyroid, and I think we'll get over here and we will see something going on in the thyroid. So we have pituitary right here. And Dr. Morse does offer a gland, there are glandulars for the pituitary gland, but you may want to just start with the herbal tincture because I have found that to be very effective. So he does offer an herbal tincture for the pituitary, and you can also address the pituitary through the endocrine system, the endocrine support tincture, because that will, so all of the endocrine glands, the tinctures, the herbs, all those formulas have a lot of similar ingredients. So the endocrine support is sort of a catch-all if you've got a lot going on in several of the glands. So I would recommend pituitary, herbal, or endocrine support for this area. All right. So this is the whole jaw, nose, lower jaw, upper jaw, and there does seem to be something going on in that area. But even more relevant is, from my perspective, is seeing this area right in here. So this is the tonsils, as well as the parathyroid and the thyroid area. So one of the things that I noticed right away in this iris is that she does have a skin ring. So that's indicating some lower functioning in the integumentary system, which is the skin. So she's going to be needing to work on getting her skin more healthy, exposing it to air, dry brushing, sweating, wearing more natural fabrics, and really boosting the thyroid and the parathyroid. And that will help the skin. And I believe we're going to come down and I will address the kidney and adrenal. So that's always going to be connected to the skin as well, because the skin is actually considered the third kidney. So if you have kidneys that are not filtering as well as they could be, or just otherwise compromised, you generally will see issues with the skin. So your skin's either going to be working you may be sweating in excess, and that would be in the acute stages, or once your kidneys and your integumentary system go into the chronic, then you actually start getting into the stage where you're not sweating enough. So yeah, we'll take a look at that, but back to this section in here. We definitely are seeing something in so this is the tonsils, or yeah, on the left side, this would be the tonsil area, and it looks like it's in a chronic to degenerative stage. I'm not sure if this person has had her tonsils removed, but either way, if you have had your tonsils removed, what this dark spot, this dark lacuna would indicate is that the level that they were functioning at prior to having them removed. So either way, they are either not in there or they are not, they're in more of a chronic level of function. So, and then the parathyroid is right in this area, right in here. So like right here is the parathyroid, and then the tonsils, I mean, they're just pretty much, I would say this lacuna is including the parathyroid and the tonsils. I don't know. And then just below that, we have the thyroid itself. So thyroid, parathyroid, the whole throat area, and that is the throat chakra, Vishuddha, and it is energetically responsible for expression, creativity, and speaking one's truth. Another interesting feature in this iris, in this area, is you can see this, and it definitely could be the lighting, but there is a little bit of a yellowing in the sclera, so even outside of the iris, outside of the skin, and that could be indicating some stress in the liver gallbladder. And again, it could be lighting, but what I'm seeing also that might correlate with that is that we have some inflammation that is pointing to this whole entire area of the throat, and then the thyroid, the vocal cords, the trachea, that whole entire area. So on the model, it would be this whole section in here, even going down into the scapula somewhat. Okay, so overall, there's a lot going on in this part of the iris, which would be, again, the whole throat and even down into the scapula area. And again, so back to working with the endocrine system, so far we have pituitary, and right next to the pituitary is the pineal. So generally speaking, it looks like that is being affected. Usually they go hand in hand, but more showing up in the pituitary and a little bit showing up in the pineal. So far we have pituitary, absolutely, possibly a little bit in the pineal, and we have thyroid and parathyroid. So like I mentioned, you can be addressing these areas through specific endocrine herbal formulas, or you can address them through the endocrine balance. And if your detox journey is a long and winding path, what you may do is start with the endocrine balance and then go from there, or start with the pituitary and go from there, and just sort of cycle those different formulas. Okay, so next thing I'm seeing is some stress in the back. So this whole area in here, let's see there's a pretty good size lacuna right here. And again, so just keep in mind, guys, all of these weaknesses or challenges you can see how they're coming directly from the digestive system. So along with cleaning the kidneys and getting the kidneys to filter the cellular waste, the digestive system is key, especially when you see this much going on specifically within the digestive system and how it's reflecting out to other areas in the body. So this is the back and the spine, and even all the way out towards the periphery, there's a little marking right in here, and we are still in the back area. So there could be some level of chronic pain or something going on within the back. All right, and we do have a few nerve rings, and they are, so let's see here. So, yeah, here's a nerve ring here. And nerve rings are significant in the way that you want to be looking at what they are passing through and where they're showing up most significantly. So in this iris, we're seeing this nerve ring right in here. Nerve ring, and then this sort of continuous one here. And it's interesting that the nerve rings are especially prominent in the back area. So nerve rings can indicate some level of nervous sensitivity. They are a contraction, so to speak, by the nervous system in response to some level of stress going on within the body, even outside the body. So that's where those nerve rings are showing up. There's a little bit of a nerve ring there, but you get the picture. So whenever you see these, the nerve rings are different in the way that they are, they're circular. So a lot of the other things that we're seeing are the markings are going from the center of the iris out straight like that, and then the nerve rings go around the iris. So, and like I said, this is a true brown eye, and a true brown eye, when you see nerve rings, you're going to see a lighter brown color underneath that you can see through the more superficial layers of the iris. In a mixed color eye, or even an eye that looks brown or hazel, looking at the nerve rings will give you clues as to what the true color of that iris is. Okay, so I'm going to take some of those off because I want to see more clearly this area and if anything else is showing up in here. So this is the kidney and adrenal area. It does look to be, there aren't any deep crypts or lacuna in this area, but it does look to be in somewhat of an acute stage. Just, I'm noticing that in the lighter coloration in this area, and it's almost like it's defining itself by this. You see this area, and it actually goes over all the way through the thigh, knee, foot, and into the hip area. But especially this area right here is the kidney and adrenal. And so there's a little bit going on. Could just be, you know, because it does look to be in the acute stages, it could be something that this person will be able to get her kidneys filtering sooner than later. But overall, guys, like what I'm seeing in this iris is that just because of the amount of radii solaris coming from the stomach, the digestive system, and so the color is, yes, it's true brown, but it's a little bit on the darker, very dark brown side. I actually had to lighten these photos up a little bit. So that's showing me that with the brown constitutional, the brown eye constitution, there's even lymphatic congestion on top of that. Okay, so we know that the kidneys very likely are not filtering, and this is just showing an acute condition in the kidney and adrenal. And it's interesting because you see this little marking right down here, and this is the skin, this is the whole skin, and you know, possibly the lymphatic system. So you can see from the chart over here, the skin is the outermost section of the iris, And within the kidney and adrenal area, there's actually a little marking or lacuna or crypt. I'm not quite sure if it's a sore spot or a crypt, but whatever it is, there is something showing us that there's this out in the skin area. We are seeing something, an effect of the kidney and adrenals not performing at their optimum level. Okay, so we have kidney and adrenal, and then this little spot right here. And then I do want to highlight the nerve rings, because we have nerve rings also going through this area. So again, that's going to show us that more emphasis, the body is showing us that there is emphasis on healing this area of the kidney and adrenal. As well, it looks like there's some inflammation in the thigh, knee, foot, and the hip area. So again, this is the left iris, and if it's the left iris we're looking at, then it's the left hip we're looking at. Okay, and one of the first, this little lacuna right here, it could even be thought of as a crypt. So the crypts are usually smaller and deeper than the lacuna, but really they're very similar, because they're both just showing you that that area has closed itself off. The body has closed that area off to protect the rest of the body from toxicity and imbalance. And generally speaking, when you see the crypts and the lacuna, those are genetically passed. So if you see a crypt or lacuna that is very dark, like this one up in here, that could be that it was genetically passed, but that you've increased the depth or the level of dysfunction throughout your lifetime through your habits, your lifestyle habits, meaning your diet and just everything in your lifestyle. Okay, so this one isn't, it's dark around the edges, but it definitely did catch my eye, and that is the ovary, like right on the ovary. So this would be the left ovary. And I've seen in this iris, it could be in in these eyes, it could be in the right iris. Let me see if it's going to come up. I've seen the uterus come up as well. So because I've seen the uterus and the one ovary so far, I would recommend the female reproductive tonic that Dr. Morse has created. It's a really lovely female tonic. It's not based, it doesn't have estrogen promoting herbs. It has more of a balancing and progesterone approach. So that would be something I would recommend for this person. Okay, and then another thing I'm seeing in this iris is the spleen. So the spleen is part of the lymphatic system. The spleen helps to filter the blood. So it's sort of this, it's a main aspect of cleaning the blood, and it has a lot of importance within the lymphatic system itself. And just, I'm looking at how the bowel wall here is a little bit darker and deeper in this area. So that's showing that the colon the large intestine is affecting, again, like the stomach and the rest of the digestive system is affecting this whole area where the spleen has a lacuna and the ovary has a lacuna. So I think I already said this, but first and foremost, I might say it again, even this person really is going to be focusing on cleaning up her stomach and bowels. And cleaning up the stomach and bowels and inspiring the endocrine system through herbs and through a really high frequency diet of fruits, greens, and some raw vegetables as needed. Okay, let's move on. All right, this tiny, I don't even know why, but sometimes I see these little tiny things and I want to point them out. So this is actually the left arm right here. So there could have been some injury to that left arm or even wrist. There could be some just stress or strain in that area. Okay. This area in here is the breast area. Not a lot going on, but a little bit of inflammation and really light and small lacuna, or I would call that a really small lacuna in the breast area. And again, just because we're seeing some other signs of possible imbalance within the female reproductive system, I would recommend taking some herbs to address that. And, you know, I do want to mention when we're taking these tinctures for the reproductive system, or taking tinctures to inspire different endocrine glands to come back online, we're really in a lot of ways addressing the discomfort of what's going on in the body and what we're seeing right away. But the primary focus always should be to get the body, get the kidneys filtering, and start to get the lymphatic system more able to be removing the cellular waste. Because once you as well, the stomach and bowels, of course. So once you get all of your elimination systems, like your colon, your stomach and bowel, your digestive system, your skin, and your kidneys filtering, once you achieve that, then you may not even need to address things like the reproductive system and, different glands in the body. So this is sort of easing the process and addressing those things while you are healing and working on achieving your ultimate goal, which is getting your body's elimination systems back online. So if someone's looking at a detox, and especially if they're looking at affordability, I would say don't get too hung up on all of the different things that you see in the iris, whether it be reproductive, what the different endocrine glands are doing, because you can just simply clean the body out and it will come back online. And so the most basic formulas and herbal approaches would be that related to the stomach and bowels, the kidneys, and getting the lymphatic system to be moving, with a priority in the beginning on getting the kidneys filtering, because you don't really want to push the lymphatic system too much before the kidneys are filtering, or you will end up getting some pretty strong detox effects. Okay, so this is the breast area here. And then this whole section is the lung, chest, breast, and heart area. So I am seeing a minor genetic weakness in the heart area, nothing to be alarmed over, but it could be something that was passed down through the generations. You could have someone, grandparents, great-grandparents, even parents that have experienced some imbalance in the heart area, but so it's this little section right here that I'm seeing, this very small lacuna, again, being affected by the stomach and bowels. So that is not, okay. Oh my gosh, I don't think I can draw a heart today. Just try it one more time. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right, there's the heart. And the rest of this heart area looks pretty clean. The chest and the lungs look pretty clean. So not much going on in there. Now I want to see, this looks like so you can see from the chart over here, this is going to be likely the medulla, but definitely the back of the head. So let me just look on my software and see what it's coming up specifically as. Actually, it is in the balance and dizziness center, which can be related to the medulla. And then, so the medulla is right in here. And here is balance and dizziness. And then here is the neck. And there does seem to be some inflammation. This area stood out to me when I first started looking at this iris. So there could be some inflammation and pain going on. It could be chronic in the neck area, and then some inflammation in the medulla, and then balance and dizziness. So when you see something like balance and dizziness coming up in the reading, and when you see the medulla coming up, and you can see that there's a lot of lymphatic congestion, you might just be aware that having dizziness, especially if you've got chronic adrenals or even acute adrenals, that when you do detox, there's a high likelihood that you could develop signs or symptoms of dizziness. And dizziness is one of those detox symptoms that I recommend that you back your detox off a little bit. But one of the great things about iridology is that you can tell from your iris what you may be experiencing, like what detox symptoms you may be experiencing the most when you do your detox. And there is a lot going on in the head and the brain area. So it would be quite likely that this person could have headaches or dizziness or brain fogginess or anything related to that area. Okay, now along with the skin ring that I mentioned, they're just, and you can only see it in this tiny little section, there's a little bit of a sheen. So there's a possibility that this person is at the very beginning stages of having elevated cholesterol levels. And elevated cholesterol is just going to indicate that there is a lot of inflammation in the body, as the body does produce excess amounts of cholesterol when there is a lot of inflammation in an attempt to cool down the inflammation. So possibly, I'm not seeing it in the rest of in the periphery of the iris, just in this one spot. But there does seem to be a bit of a haze up in this area, and that could even be indicating some level of anemia. So not only do we have the skin ring, but it's a little bit hazy, so there could be some anemia also. Okay, I think that's all I'm seeing so far, or that's the extent of what I'm seeing in the left eye, and I'm going to move on to the right now. So I'll see you guys in a second. Okay, bye.